Now, Turkey has been defending its anti-terrorism laws during a meeting with EU officials. Last week, leaders of the European Union asked member states to grant visa-free travel to Turkish citizens. But they also said Turkey needed to change the way it fights terrorists, such as the outlawed PKK group. However, Turkey's EU Affairs Minister Volkan Bozkır says that's not possible. Now, he said Turkey's anti-terror law actually meets European standards. This change to the anti-terror law is not an element of the visa exemption deal. And Kevin Ozebek has been following the meeting from Brussels. He joins us now live. Kevin, it seems that clearly the EU and Turkey don't see eye to eye on the issue of Turkey's terrorism laws. So Turkey's minister to the EU is meeting with EU officials over in Strasbourg, and it doesn't really sound like he's saying what the EU wants to hear. What's going to happen from all of this, do you think?
No, not at all. In fact, his comments are quite worrying to EU leaders and EU officials. You just mentioned that he told the Turkish broadcaster that Turkey has no plans on changing its anti-terror laws. Well, it's Europe who is asking Turkey to do just that in order to get visa-free travel for Turkish citizens. The EU is insisting that in order for visa liberalization to happen, Turkey has to narrow its definition of terrorism. As you mentioned, Turkey's side on all of this is it needs this broad definition in order to battle against the PKK. But as Brussels sees it, President Erdogan can use that very broad definition to crack down on journalists and his opposition. This is such a crucial issue here because it was hoped that next month the European Parliament would vote on whether or not it approves visa liberalization for Turkish citizens. The Parliament has to vote on this and approve it in order for this to happen. And it also has been very clear from the Parliament standpoint that if Turkey does not meet all criteria, including changing its definition of terrorism, it will not approve this. And that could really put the EU-Turkey deal in jeopardy.
Well, it doesn't sound like Erdogan is really going to budge on this. He's been saying that he plans to have these visas in place by October. It doesn't really sound like the EU is going to budge here either. Is the EU-Turkey deal now at complete risk of collapsing, or is there still time for this to be negotiated, do you think?
Well, many will say that it sure looks like it's heading towards that direction, but also President Erdogan saying that he wants this to be done by October really gives more time for negotiating, because when this was all signed between the EU and Turkey that they were going to do this EU-Turkey deal, originally it was hoped by Turkey that visa liberalization would happen in June. So the president saying that the other day did give negotiators a few more months to work with here. Also, EU officials definitely want to make this deal work. They want the EU-Turkey plan to stay afloat, and that's because it has dramatically reduced the number of refugees leaving Turkey and heading towards Greece. Also, EU officials really pushed this deal hard to the European public. So in order to save face, they do want to make sure that this deal will end up standing. But also at the same time, we've heard over and over again from members of the European Parliament that there is no room for negotiating here, that if Turkey doesn't fulfill all of its requirements, including changing its definition of terrorism, this deal will go away. So we'll just have to wait and see what really happens in the next few months, and if in fact Turkey and the EU will eventually see eye to eye when it comes to Turkey's terrorism laws.
Seem to have worked quite hard to get to this point, only to be stuck. All right, thank you, Kevin. That's great. Kevin Ozebek in Brussels for us there.